You know, anytime you have gunfire, whether it's at a graduation, whether it's on a school campus, or if it's in a residential area, it's devastating. It's devastating to the community. This isn't something that we want to happen in any community.
When we're still reeling from a mass shooting at a Texas high school, we begin tonight with a breaking story. Reports coming into the bridge here of multiple people shot at Mount Zion High School in Clayton County. Now, we sent crews scrambling as soon as the story broke. Here's what we know right now. We know the shooting happened in the parking lot of Mount Zion High just a few hours ago. We also know that the Perry Learning Center, which is an alternative high school, had its graduation at the Performing Arts Center at that school across the street tonight beginning at 6. We have multiple reporters on the scene. Let's get to Ryan Kruger first. Ryan, we know 2 people were shot, 1 person injured. What more can you tell us tonight, Ryan?
Well, we also know that unfortunately 1 woman did die as a result of her injuries in this shooting. You see behind me still a very active investigation that is going on. So Clayton County Schools Police and Clayton County Police are also taking over.
We have an investigation that's going on. We had a graduation earlier. Well, we don't know a lot right now. We're still working the crime scene, but what was reported is as follows. It was at the conclusion of the graduation itself, and it was reported that an argument broke out, which led to 2 individuals being shot.
What do we know about is the shooter? What do we know about the shooter? Are they in custody?
Well, we don't know very much. Again, we're still working the investigation, so I personally cannot tell you very much at this time. We have solicited and asked Clayton County Police Department to come in and assist us with this. So we have their crime scene investigation team as well as their criminal investigation team conducting the investigation as we speak.
Most cases aren't lost in court. They're lost in the first 48 hours. And the public doesn't see this happening because by the time the headlines hit, the damage is already done. We've seen that over and over again.
There were gunshot injuries to 2. The status of those individuals are unknown at this time. I've been here at the scene, so I can't report the injuries, but they were transported to the hospital.
Evidence has already been missed. Witnesses have already drifted away, and suspects have already left and adjusted.
There was an argument, and that's all we know now. It's a fluid investigation. They're still working the investigation. If you look over my right shoulder, you will see the crime scene technicians and the investigators still gathering evidence and talking to witnesses. So that's where we are right now. I can't confirm how many suspects they're looking for, but they are actively pursuing anyone who might have any information or be involved in this incident. Not at this time, not that I know of. Again, I'm here on the scene, and we have many officers out doing different functions, attempting to solve this matter.
Do we know at this point how many people are in custody?
No, I don't have that information. We're working the scene as we speak.
New details in that deadly shooting outside a graduation ceremony in Clayton County. Tonight, we have learned that police have arrested 2 people in connection to that shooting.
We saw someone in handcuffs.
Well, we have individuals, when you're not sure of what an individual's involvement is, that's just a standard practice to just secure everyone until we can kind of sort things out.
Police aren't telling us who they arrested just yet, just that they had several conversations with people of interest and then arrested 2. Meanwhile, police tape still litters the ground in the parking lot where that shooting happened.
It was not very good. It wasn't pleasant. I was pretty emotional because the last thing you want to do is have a situation at a graduation that results in anyone being injured and definitely not being shot.
This is the Hill of Justice.
What we're going to do is we're going to break down not one, but a few cases, and we'll be breaking down the moment where these cases either were built right or fell apart permanently. Most people think that these investigations are about what happens later. And you're probably familiar with arrests, you're probably familiar with the interrogation, the trials, so on and so forth. But that's not where it's at. Where it's at is where the cases are decided, and they're decided super early. And we're going to talk about this. I'm Jerome Hill, former law enforcement officer. My brother, obviously a retired sheriff. And he was also a former homicide detective. So, brother, when I'm taking a look at some of these things and I look at the first 48 hours and I'm trying to go ahead and map up, and certainly we go through these trainings on how to go ahead and what is crucial in those first 48 hours. And we know that most of these cases can almost solve themselves if done properly and under the right structure. But most oftentimes they're mishandled, and you have to spend months or even years trying to recover. And you never really do, because the first 48 hours are very crucial, much like the show that you see. The first 48 hours is what we feel as though, and I'm sure you feel as though, is the most valuable window in any investigation, bar none.
It is. Actually, when I went to homicide school, we were taught it's the first 72 hours. Of course, TV has a way of dramatizing things, so probably 48 and first go better for a title.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think you should wait 3 days. I think the intensity should be right at the scene, going first to the first 48, 72 hours. But yeah, those first 72 hours is very, very crucial. Textbook is 72 hours. TV is 48 hours. And that means for 3 days straight, when you're assigned a murder case, you should be doing nothing else. Everything should stop.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of dysfunctionalism, and I'll start to break that down of things I've seen over the years, why our victims aren't getting the first 72 hours. And there's a whole lot. Politics, laziness, incompetence, the list goes on.
Right.
But go ahead, brother.
Yeah, it's clear, because witnesses if we were to take a look at the first 48 to 72 hours, we're talking about witnesses still remember some of the details clearly. The suspects, quite truthfully, are still within reach. That's huge. We got the digital footprints that are still active. The physical evidence is still intact in a lot of instances. And this is where everything is closest to the truth, that first 48 to 72 hours. Anything longer than that, it's going to be bad times.
Right. And let me add this. Everything rises and falls on leadership. If you put someone in charge of homicides who's never worked a homicide before, that's bad, because he doesn't know what to tell the people to do or what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very important. So not just the commander of CID, but also who the chief or the sheriff is, because if they're not asking questions or demanding something to be done, it won't get done. Unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but the truth is the truth is the truth. A lot of government workers are lazy because they get paid the same thing no matter what. So a lot of them trying to figure out how to do less and make the same. So if you're not pushing an issue, they may not take the initiative. Let me give you two good examples. We had a mother that was killed at a graduation, and it was a chaotic scene.
I didn't know what to do. We heard a thing, somebody say Waka Flocka, and we just ran.
And then as everyone was running, they were just running outside, running to the parking lot?
Yeah, running everywhere, running from the parking lot, everywhere. People were stumbling over each other. I was shook.
Did you hear gunshots?
Yes.
Did you
How
see
many?
anyone hurt?
I heard like multiple. That's it for now.
And I remember asking, did anybody recover the weapon? And they didn't. So I sent help out there and spoke to the detective. I said, I think y'all really need to take a second look at that scene, and sure enough, within 30 minutes of getting there, the gun is in a grassy area. Now think, if I didn't push that issue, that murder weapon would have never been recovered. Worse yet, maybe a child may have picked it up. Anything could have happened. But if that crime scene was thoroughly went through like a fine-tooth comb, that gun should have been found that night. Now, keep in mind, it's a graduation, it's a crowd. I get it. It's pandemonium. They're having problems controlling people or whatever. But you got to keep that scene locked down as long as possible and make sure, because if you don't get certain evidence there, and then all type of things happen when it's outside, rain, snow, whatever, and you can lose a lot of trace evidence. But here's another problem that happens. In my county, because of the politics, there's a lot of wasted money, a lot of separation of different agencies, and a lot of fighting over who does what, instead of just putting everything under one umbrella. And that makes for major logistical problems. But I had a fugitive unit, and the county police were the if you want to call it first responder, whatever that means, they're the first to respond and handle the homicides. Well, I always made sure that my fugitive unit responded to a homicide as well. Here's why. There's two types of homicides. It's either a smoking gun or a whodunit. So a smoking gun, you get there, you know who did it. You just got to go get him. I mean, sometimes it's a boyfriend and he ran off. Well, under the old system, they get there, they work the scene, they get the warrant, and by the time they go through the administrative process, let's say this murder happened Thursday, we may get the warrant Monday morning. That makes absolutely sense. So you're going to give him 3 days or a weekend to be free before you actually send a warrant for us to go get him. That makes no sense at all. So I had my guys respond, and I responded too. I responded to every murder if I'm in town, because I needed to know if it was someone that we knew and we could start looking for right away. Because that same 48, 72 hours also applies to catching fugitives. So if you know who did it, why would you not immediately start an immediate manhunt right then and there? Under the old system, he had 3 days to get out of town, get out of the country, or do whatever he wanted. So if we knew who the suspect was, instead of getting all this administrative bureaucracy, well, we haven't got the warrant yet. Okay, well, you're getting a warrant, right? Let's at least put eyes on him and watch him. Mm-hmm. So when you get the warrant signed, we already know where he is. So that was an issue because, and then one more thing, I don't want to be too long-winded, but it's why it's so important. It has to be strong leadership and a strong iron fist to get anything done when it comes to investigations. Is we've had murder suspects we were looking for, and I would check every day, where are we at on finding this guy? I want him found. And I'll never forget, I was talking to the guy that was in charge of it then. I won't even say who that was. We'll talk about that another time. But I asked him on Thursday, where we at, what we doing? He said, we're doing this, we're doing that. I said, okay, good. What you doing tomorrow? We're going to do this, we're going to do that. I said, okay, good. Make sure you do this and that. Friday on the phone, what we got? Well, we did this, and this. Okay, good. What you going to do next? Well, Monday. What you mean Monday? You want to give him the weekend off? If that was your sister, your brother, would you want the team looking for the person that killed them off on the weekend and the suspect got 2 days to go? What? I guess we coming in tomorrow. I guess you are. Until you find them, that's when we'll start getting the days off.
Right.
So if there's not that type of push, those first 48 to 72 hours don't get the full attention that it needs. Mm-hmm. You literally got to have someone that's going to not just lead the horse to the water, but not be a dummy and say, well, I led him to the water. No, force feed the water down his throat or get an IV and stick it in the vein. That's the type of leadership that has to be there to ensure that those first 48 to 72 hours, the victims and the family of the victims are getting the type of police work they deserve for justice.
Right. And I think it's best to highlight some of the things that you were talking about. And here's what happens after the window closes. Memory becomes unreliable. People start talking to each other and stories start changing.
Right.
Evidence degrades or disappears. We've seen evidence walk away.
Yes.
We've seen suspects create distance. And when they create distance, guess what they also do? They create alibis. And that's always pathetically ridiculous to deal with. So after 48 hours, you're not chasing the truth anymore. You're chasing what's left of it. And that is where we have to deal with after 48 to 72 hours. And I think that you brought up another point, and we have to talk about this. First and foremost, the most common failure is hesitation. It's a little bit what you were talking about. Missing persons, they label those as runaway too early, and people don't go ahead and really take a look for them. Oh, they're just runaways. Officers are waiting for confirmation instead of acting on instinct, command, leadership. We're talking about situations being downgraded prematurely. Come on now. I've seen that too many times. Then you have the hesitation that costs more time. And when you have that time that disappears, guess what? It costs opportunity for folks.
Yes.
And that's where we want those opportunities, because those investigations don't slow down when you wait. They move forward without you. And that's where the problem is.
Yes.
And for those people who are in law enforcement, the best decisions are made when you're uncomfortable. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. When something feels off, that's when you move.
That's
Time
true.
doesn't just pass in an investigation. It destroys your options. And that's part of I know some of the things that you've seen also.
Yes, definitely. The last murder I worked in homicide was a textbook example of some of the stuff that you're talking about. A young man came up missing. His mother reported him missing, and of course, they just, well, how old is he? Well, he's 19 years old, whatever like that. And they really didn't pay any attention. She kept pushing the issue. She kept pushing the issue. So finally, she asked, well, can y'all just put a lookout for his car? Well, that turned into a bureaucracy. There was commanders, well, he's 19 or whatever. There was one commander sharp enough to say, well, what's it going to hurt to put the car as a missing person? That way, if you run the tag, we'll know it's connected to a missing person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out this car was sitting in a neighborhood and somebody had already reported the car as abandoned. An officer came and tagged the car, left, didn't come back in 3 days to tow it. So the person called again, but this time when they ran the tag, it came back to the missing person. Well, that commander who pushed the issue to put the car on the computer as connected to a missing person called me and said, hey, look, I need you to go down there and look into it. This mother's been saying her son has been missing. Well, I get there, and in the back of the windshield, there's dead flies. And when I walked around to the trunk and sniffed around the trunk area, I already knew what we had inside the trunk. And needless to say, he'd been in that car approximately 10 days, and he had been stabbed actually 19 times. He was stabbed for every year he was on this earth. And I was able to solve that murder, fortunately, but it was difficult. Had everyone did what they were supposed to do and take it serious in the beginning, we would have already been on that crime scene. And it would have been easier. But fortunately, we was able to find out who did it. And that's another story for another time. That's a very, very interesting murder case.
Right. I got a second point that I want you to either push back or even jump on.
Sure.
The second failure is losing control of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people entering and exiting. We got poor perimeter control. You have people lack of immediate documentation, or they're documenting things that are so pathetically unnecessary inside this scene that we have. And it's like, it's a step over potential evidence that we could have otherwise. And here's what most people don't even realize. You don't always know what's important in the moment. That's why control matters in this situation if we're controlling the scene. The scene isn't controlled. The case isn't either.
Well, again, that's when it comes to strong leadership. Somebody has to come and take command and control. They have to lock that scene down. I've pulled up on scenes where there's no control. The media is running around on the crime scene, and I got to immediately tell them, hey, create a perimeter, get them a place to stand because they're not serving a purpose anyway. And, if there isn't a strong command presence there that knows what to do, and then you have to have the strength to enforce what to do. Some people know what to do, but, I don't want to step on any toes, or I'm afraid I'm going to get involved in some politics, which is prevalent in law enforcement right now. But again, everything rises and falls on leadership. And what you see is a reflection of leadership, whether strong or whether it's weak. But you're absolutely right. The crime scene preservation and integrity is only as strong as the people in charge to enforce, to train, this is what we will do on crime scenes. When I get there better be crime scene tape and there better be control. Or if not, I don't need you. Because if I got to get there and make that happen, then obviously you don't know what you're doing. What purpose do you serve?
Right.
And it just goes on all levels. And I could tell you a whole lot of nightmare stories about that. I pulled up on scenes of manhunts, and the commanders are directing traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just bizarre. Like, they don't know what to do. And then I'll hold a meeting the next day. Hey, I got a question for you. Who was in charge yesterday till I got there? What do you mean? Who was in charge? I mean, I just want to know. Yeah. I mean, what? Who's in charge? Because you were directing traffic. Well, when I got there, no one was directing traffic. Quite good. When the world showed up, did you assign someone to take control of the scene?
Right.
Because if I got to tell people, hey, block this intersection, do this, hit this house, do this, get me a helicopter, what I need you for?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I have command and some officers having, you know, the audacity to have a description and they're not even pulling out a bolo. What are you doing?
It's more bizarre than that, you know. And I know we're kind of getting away from the crime scene thing, but it's all interconnected. Let me tell you how even bizarre it is. Okay, you get a robbery, you get whatever, a person, whatever the scene is. So everyone's rushing to the scene.
Correct. Right.
Okay. So then everybody rushes to the scene, then they all get there and they stand there and they sit around and talk and hold hands. Okay. If you just got a robbery and the robbery suspect was last seen going north on Terra Boulevard, why is everybody going to the crime scene instead of going further north or being somewhere where they can see? Maybe we need guys sitting up seeing if the
we need
pass
perimeters.
by.
Yeah.
We need perimeters, and we need
secondary perimeters too.
And I can't tell you how many times I pulled up on a crime scene and there's about 10 or 15 officers, and I got to say, listen, the suspect is not here. He's somewhere out there. So I need y'all out there, not here. And then you got people looking like their tail, like their tails are hurt or whatever, their feelings, and walking off with their tail between their legs. You can't catch the suspect here. He's not staying here because he's trying to avoid y'all. And right now he's getting a good head start because y'all all sitting around looking at the body or the crime scene.
Right.
I mean,
because everybody wants to see that.
That's what the spectators.
They're not looking elsewhere.
Right. That's what the spectators in the media for. I need you out there looking for the suspect.
Right.
So when you have that type of loosey-goosey stuff going on, and there's no strong leader there to take command and control and tell the troops where to deploy and how to deploy, then that's what you get. And it's the same thing when you're looking at a homicide investigation. If a person gets there and he doesn't know what to do, first of all, that's a problem. And if he knows what to do, then he needs to take command and control.
Correct.
Hey, I need you to interview the witnesses. I need you to take pictures of that. Hey, I need you to go to a campus and knock on every door. Right. I need you to check for ring cameras. I need this, and this. And I need someone in charge to let me know what the progress of each one of these things I'm asking for is being done. And I need that progress report in the next 20 minutes. Right. It has to go like that. And if it's not going like that, then you get what, quite frankly, is piss poor police work.
And a little bit about what you were talking about when we talk about suspects, and I'm glad that you brought that up, and see if this matters much to you. I think talking about our third failure is the one that annoys me the most, because what happens is it destroys cases quietly in the beginning, but you get to see the aftermath of it, and it's so loud at the end. And what I'm talking about is these investigators, the detectives that have so much pride, and they get into this thing called tunnel vision. I hate it. They're looking into one suspect too early. They're building evidence around a theory, you know, instead of testing it and ignoring all types of contradictions that are out there.
You saw it with the Ramsey case. You saw it with Richard Jewell.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of folks looking at the facts or whatever, like you say, they get tunnel vision on this target because they want this person to be the one. And we're not even going, and we can do a whole other show when it's called making a person a target of investigation. You got investigators and prosecutors out there that no one's even looking for the person. It's just, hey, here's a person I don't like. I want to prosecute him. Well, let's find something. So they're going out, especially if it's a high profile person, politician or whatever. There's this decision. Hey, we want to prosecute this guy. Okay, well, let's start finding a reason to prosecute him. Meanwhile, there's murderers and rapists running around, but they're so enthralled with finding something on this person. That's a whole nother show for another time. But let's get back to you actually have a crime and actually have a reason to be there, instead of just deciding that here's a guy I want to put in prison because I think it can help my career or get me revenge or whatever.
Right.
Let's get to that.
Right.
You get to the scene, you're trying to solve it. And there are some folks that are willing to make up a suspect or decide that this person is going to be the suspect just so that they can say we solved the crime and just so that they can say we're doing something. Yeah, and I think that's what happened with Richard Jewell.
Yeah, they create these narratives.
They create a narrative, right.
And instead of truth-seeking processes. And once that happens, I want everyone to listen to this because I'm so serious about this. Once that happens, you're no longer solving a case. You're defending a conclusion that you concocted.
And you got to understand, prosecutors, investigators, judges, none of them want to admit that they're wrong. They will take it. They will take it all the way to hell if they have to, just to prove that they weren't wrong. And the sad part is, so much travesty come out of it. First of all, you're victimizing an innocent person. 50,000 people every year are convicted, wrongfully convicted.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing is the person that is victimized, he doesn't get justice because the real killer is going free. So all the time they spend on Richard Jewell, all the time they spend on the Ramsey family, the real killer is running around there free. They're running around with this facade because they want media or they want to prove they're right or whatever. And it's a travesty when you think about it. It really is.
And what do they teach us all the time in school? The job isn't to prove your theory. It's to challenge it until it breaks. That's what they want you to do. But instead, people are trying to put a square into a circle.
Absolutely. And my mentor in Homicide, he said something, and I think it's a quote that every investigator, anybody that's really want to be a real cop and a real investigator and not run around here on a bunch of foolishness and lawfare and targeting folks and doing all the dumb stuff that we've seen them do over the last few years. But he said something I thought was profound. He said that a good cop has to work just as hard to get a guilty man out of jail as he works. No, I kick that back. A good cop has to work just as hard to get an innocent man out of prison, just as he would work to put a guilty man in prison. So if you know a person is innocent, that person deserves you working just as hard to free him as the person that's guilty. The victims deserve you working as hard to put that person in prison. Let me give you another tragic example in my years as a detective. We had this armed robbery at a well-known barbecue spot. It was actually a spot that we frequented as cops. So when they got robbed, it was very, very interesting, to say the least. But anyway, one of the ladies there, she was very adamant. She said, "Look, I know who one of the robbers was. He used to work here." And she picks him out of the lineup and she says, "Hey, that's the guy." So we get a warrant for him. So after we get the warrant that night, we go looking for him. We drive in these apartment complexes, and this apartment complex rather, and it's me and three other cops. Actually, three other. We're riding 4 deep. And as we're riding to go check by his apartment, one of the detectives said, "That's him." I put the car on brakes and back up, and he takes off running. There's a short manhunt. We don't get him. The next day, same guy turns himself in. He comes in to see me, and he says, "Hey, I'm the guy you was chasing last night." I said, "Okay, well, I appreciate you turning yourself in." He said, "I'm coming in to prove my innocence." And let me just say this: we searched his apartment, we searched the car. The money bag was in the car, some other stuff that was in there. It was very obvious that it was connected to the robbery. And I said, "Listen now," I said, "we found all the stuff at your place. The car you had, the money bag is in it." He said, I know, but it wasn't me." I said, "Who it was?" He said, "It was my brother." I said, "You got a twin brother?" He said, "No, I don't have a twin brother, but we look exactly alike." He said, "Look, he's been locked up several times. Pull up his picture right now, and I guarantee you won't be able to tell the difference between him and I." I pull it up. I can't tell the difference. I said, "Okay." And they're about 2-3 years apart. And he said, "If you check your messages, my father's been calling you. Either he called, you'll hear a voicemail from him." Sure enough, he's on the phone. "Hey, my brother didn't do that. I did." But he didn't say he was turning himself in. He just said, "Hey, my brother didn't do it." So anyway, I go to the supervisors and tell them about it. "Well, we got a warrant. You got to put him in jail." I said, "Okay." And then we got to figure it out. So the next day, I wasn't the lead detective on it. It was another detective. So the next day I go to him and I said, "Okay, how are we going to handle this? You want us to go to the DA and talk to him?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The guy didn't do it. It's obvious he didn't do it. His father's saying, 'Hey, listen, you got the wrong son. It's my other son that did it.' Even the other guy say, 'Hey, I did it. Y'all need to let my brother go.'" Do you know what this guy told me? He said, "I'm not worried about it. If he didn't do that, he did something." God is my witness. So anyway, I call a DA on my own. And at that time, we had probably well, I won't say the last. We had a DA after him that was decent, but he's one of the last decent DAs we ever had, because we know what we got now.
Mm.
And I explained the situation to him, and he said, "Okay." He said, I get what you're saying. I'll work with you. He said, "I just need a little bit more so we can cut this guy loose. Get me this, and that." And I said, "Okay," and was able to get the guy to jail. But it was that attitude that, okay, well, we may have the wrong guy, but he probably did something else, so leave him in there.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff I'm talking to.
Yeah,
So,
the number 2 that we were talking about.
exactly.
Yeah. And now we got what I think is the number 4th failure. And it's as maddening as everything else, but it has created the most pain within the past, we're in 2026, in the past 26 years. And this is failure in communication. Agencies not sharing information quickly, confusion in command staff structure, multiple voices trying to control the situation and investigations, people not being agreeable when
Jerome,
communication breaks down.
It's bizarre.
It is crazy.
First of all, America probably has more law enforcement agencies anywhere in the world. You go to a country like Japan, there's one police force for the whole country. You don't have all these multiple agencies. In my county alone, there's 11 agencies. Mm-hmm. So when something happens, people think, okay, well, all the cops, they're working on it together, because they don't really, half the people don't know the difference between the sheriff's office and the county police or whatever. They just know, I called the police and that somebody came. Mm-hmm. But in that world, you would think you're talking to gang members. They're fighting over who's going to handle the case. If it's now, sometimes they're fighting because they don't want the case. But if it's something they want because it's high profile and they think it could bring something, they're fighting over whose jurisdiction it is. And then they're fighting over, well, I don't want to share information because if I share information, you may solve the case and I might not get the glory. It's bizarre. Yeah. Meanwhile, you got a person that's been raped, robbed, murdered. We had a situation like that with a serial rapist. And everybody was concerned with who was going to get the glory for catching a serial rapist. And there was this whole big political thing. I think the folks at the county police was afraid we were going to catch him. And then it turns out it was one of their recruits that was doing the serial raping.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but all that time spent doing that, we could have came together and found the person instead of worrying about who was going to get the glory. And because of that, he was able to do more damage longer because of people not wanting to share information, not wanting to work together because they're afraid who's going to get the credit.
Yeah. And one of the most demonstrative, I guess you could take a look at it, epic images that you can see was when the towers fell down, when the plane went down outside of Pittsburgh, and when the plane struck the Pentagon. All of that was a failure in communication. Organizations that had pieces of the puzzle weren't talking to each other, and it created all this mess that we could have stopped thousands of lives on that day.
Let me say this in conclusion, and everybody hates this because, everybody wants to rule the world. That's why you see all these different cities, counties, and people will actually create a city just so they can have their own government. I think it was Tears for Fears to say everybody wants to rule the world. And then I think it was another wise person that said that there are people who would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's been tried and tested. They've studied every war back to the Napoleonic era. And every army that had more than one general that went up against an army that had one clear commander have always lost, because you got too many generals fighting over whether to flank left, flank right, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Whereas if they go up against whoever, Genghis Khan or whatever, and he's clearly, hey, this is what we're doing, move this way, do this way, and this is it, then they win. And that's a problem. You got too many chiefs and no Indians. Everybody wants to be the king. And the fact of the matter is, if everyone's the king, then where's the kingdom? Right. And that's just too much. So you see all of this going on all level of government, especially city councils. You see this, you see all this grab. Let's take the power away from the mayor. He has too much power because it's not okay for him to have that power if they were the mayor.
Mm.
But is it really democracy they want, or is it control because they want things done their way if the person in authority is going in a different direction? But the problem is all of the victims of that, the money wasted, the lives lost, because the people at the top are too busy worrying who's in charge and worrying who's going to get the glory. And then as a result, you get all of these unsolved murder cases. Right now, in Clayton County, in my county, we have so many unsolved murders.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at these files, I can guarantee you, you're going to see so many basic leads that weren't even followed. It's almost to the point to where if a person gets murdered in this county now, if the killer doesn't leave his driver's license and insurance, they're not going to find him. He has to damn near, here's my license, leave it here, and let me leave you a fingerprint. Because if it's not simple, they either don't have they're either too lazy to follow all of the leads or don't know how to.
Right.
And this is probably not just my county. I think it's something that we're seeing prevail all over the country, unfortunately.
You're right. And cases that come in my mind right off the bat is the Atlanta child murders, the Gigolo Beach guilty verdict, and also sentencing a couple days ago, where he admitted to killing the 7 to 8 women over there. That was a piece of work between task forces and so on and so forth. So you make up great points on there. So we'll go ahead and land it on there.
Yeah,
but
we got to have some real cops back on the scene, some real investigators, and just quite frankly, they got to quit putting folks in those positions that quite frankly couldn't find a prostitute in a prostitution house.
Fair enough. So many of you are subscribing, liking, commenting. So I want to do something a little bit different with you, especially many of you are some outstanding sleuths. You are commenting on our social media and you make great points out there. So let me ask you, the audience, do cases fall apart because criminals are getting smarter or because these early decisions are getting worse? I want your answers in the comments and we'll go ahead and debate it on that end of it. And if you want real breakdowns of any more cases, please go ahead and comment on that too. And we'll go ahead and introduce and look at those cases also. So without further ado, brother, thank you for bringing it today.
All right.
And we'll see you later.
All right. Take care, brother.